Hey, Jan, Adrian, oh, yeah, I've been thinking about you.
Uh,
Nothing in particular, but just how are you?
I'm good. Last week I missed you because the Healing Journeys board had our retreat in Santa Cruz, and we made a decision that this is the time to close Healing Journeys.
Well, Jan, and for the other people listening, I hope they don't mind us having a little chat. I want to tell you, I've talked, and people can consider this a pre-class class. I've actually shared with a few people the story of you closing Healing Journeys.
Mhm.
And the reason why is because I think there's something really admirable about letting something end. And I don't think we do that very well in our modern world. It's like everyone wants everything to go always forever and get bigger and bigger and more. And there's this unspoken sort of weirdness around just closing a business, closing a
And
nonprofit,
ending a marriage.
ending a marriage. Sure, no, that's true.
Yeah.
That's actually a great point. Ending a marriage, leaving a
Just because
school.
something ends doesn't mean that it's a failure. It means it's lived its life and it's a success. It's
Yeah,
done what it was meant to do.
so good. It's really good. And
Mhm.
the thing about it, just to push it a little further, is it's like just dangerously artificial to not embrace that. Because everything comes and goes.
Yes.
And every tree, every creature, even mountains eventually come and go. So it's just sort of like a bizarre human delusion to feel like everything should last always. Even our favorite restaurant takes an item off the menu. We I'm never going back again. They took the veal piccata away, like well,
No more chocolate pudding at Trader Joe's.
did that happen?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. I think you did.
Thank you.
Yeah, and for people who are listening that don't know, Jan ran an organization called Healing Journeys, which offered incredible support and education and resources for people on a journey with cancer, and it made a huge impact in the lives of thousands and thousands of people. Um, and as much as I think the world needs more of those, and for that to continue, I think it's also really cool that it can just have a rest. Huh.
It's actually our 30th anniversary of our first conference was March 26th. So it lived for 30 years.
Wow. Yeah, which is more than I can say about anything and everything.
I just
Well,
and it keeps going though, that it lived, but it's still living. That's what anything that goes away that you appreciated, it's still in our hearts, our memories to recapture what it meant then. So it's all that's including a marriage, including veal piccata. You've got to find some other place to get it. So that's just
yes, well, or it gives us this opportunity to realize that the things that have served us, like just as those things come and go and change, we evolve. And so maybe we go somewhere else to find a veal piccata, or maybe we try something new on the menu, because that's usually what they hope, right? Well, I'm going to pause for a moment and just greet the group. Welcome, friends. We have lots of people joining us that are with us all the time. And then we also have folks that we don't see as often, or maybe we're seeing for the first time. Hello, Sherry Lynn. How are you? Welcome. Uh, you uh, and then we have, I think Pia's actually been with us before, although camera off. Kim Taylor, Anna, I think we've seen, but I don't know which Anna that is. Anyway, I'm just saying hello to everyone. If you haven't been with us before, we usually start kind of like this, which is we take just a little time for small talk. Although I think our small talk today was big talk. I think that was, I almost decided to just throw away the topic of the day and let's just talk about endings. I think endings is just such a good topic.
I do.
Um, I'm still tempted to do that, but I'm going to stay the course. So typically when we get together here, we have a little time for people to get in the room. I'm doing my best to send a newsletter reminder the day of. I actually just sent one like a minute before the class began. The newsletters for people that aren't on the newsletter, there's usually fresh content every week. Once in a while, there's not, but almost always. Meaning some writing, some video, some link to an interview or something I've done that might be interesting. This week's newsletter is celebrating the finalization of our details for our Africa 2025 trip. So that is now being posted. And there's some pretty cool videos that I've included relating to that. Um, and then once we're all together, sometimes we have people asking questions just before we get started. And then we move into something experiential, some content. Usually I do some teaching. We also have a chance to share and discuss. And that's kind of it. It's a little bit of a lot of things. But one of the things that I do love and appreciate is that whether you come once a year or almost every week, our intention is to sort of hold a space here for your journey and whatever's important to you and to have a sense of community. We don't get to hear from everybody every week, but we get to see everybody and we know you're here. And I'm grateful. So with that, I'm ready to get into our topic of the day, but I just can never resist asking, is there anything anybody needs before we get going? Any important clarifications or questions, or shall we just get going? Okay, Lanny, please.
I have a question. You sent out the email about sending a picture of the receipt
Oh
of your
yeah,
book.
yeah.
Do I have to go back to my Amazon receipts and find it, or
It doesn't matter. If you just have the book and you just take a picture of the book or yourself and you wave it. So what Lanny's asking about is that I have a class. I'm actually gonna. I'll probably. I think I'll send it Monday. I've been waiting a little bit because the book's just out, so people have been waiting, or people have been just getting it. For anyone who has the book, I'm sending a little video that's just special release for people that got the book, and it's about how do we actively and immediately begin to cultivate uh, spiritual experiences. And I'm excited about it. But what Lanny's saying is I'm just kind of asking, so I know you got the book that you just send me an email. My email's on my website, or you can respond to the newsletter. And it's nice if you could just show any kind of evidence that you actually got the book, which could be just a picture of the book or you or the receipt or anything like that. And if you just borrow somebody else's book and take a picture of yourself with it, I don't really care. I'll still send you the video. Any other questions? All right. So, so the topic today is derived from the book Spiritual Experience, and the topic is spirits and the spirit world. And this topic is, to me, such an important but just such a complicated topic when it comes to spirituality and personal growth. More than spirituality, broadly speaking, spirits, the existence of spirits or beings that exist with some integrity and intelligence and independence from the material world, it is probably one of the more complicated topics in the world of spirituality. And I say that because the first layer of challenge we have, and you're here because you believe in the spiritual life and the spiritual path. But the first challenge we have is that most of us live in a world where even that basic assumption that we are spiritual beings on a spiritual journey, even that is not taken for granted by most people. So that's the first layer of it. Then the next layer of complexity we have around the spiritual journey is what in fact is the spiritual journey. For many people, there is a belief that even if they accept that spirituality is important, they still reduce it to a largely psychological pursuit. So spirituality is about attitude and mindset and relationships and connection and being a better person. And I'm going to say something provocative and possibly offensive. And by the way, this is my preamble, and then we're going to do something experiential, and then I'm going to talk some more, and then I want to hear from all of you. But this is going to be a longer preamble. Um, in my lifetime of being in professional roles relating to spirituality for almost 30 years, which is hard to believe that anyone would have paid me for anything 30 years ago. When the question comes up, well, what is spirituality to you? I have to tell you, it is astonishingly common how often people have said, well, I think spirituality is just about being a good person. And to that, I have to say, like, I think that's like the weakest answer. And I say that with apology because I'm sure we've all said that at some point. I don't think that's spirituality. I think that's just decency, right? I mean, that's just being human. You could be an atheist. You could be a lot of things. I mean, the only thing you probably wouldn't be to say, oh, I think life's just about being a good person. I don't know, would be a sadist or some sort of sociopathic, killer. I think for most of us to say, well, I think, the purpose of life is just to be good. I don't know. I think we can do better than that. I think we could be more specific than that. And specifically, when we talk about spirituality, I think we can take that answer, which has a good intention behind it, and push it and say, well, what does it mean to be a good person? What does it even mean to be a person, right? Well, then that becomes more interesting. And we start to unravel topics like interconnection and the soul and energy. And we start to realize that maybe by definition, that spirituality needs to include spirit. Like a spirituality without spirit is really just humanism, right? It's really just positive psychology. And that's fine. But the point is they have their own thing. When we're bold enough to say that spirituality explicitly includes a relationship to the mystical, the magical, the mythical, um, the meaningful, we begin to enter into much more complicated conversations. And I think that's why a lot of people avoid talking about what spirituality really means to them because it's so difficult to use words like spirit, God, spirits, without evoking all kinds of conflict and differences of opinion and innuendo. And yet, for most of human history, most cultures, and this is pretty broad generalization, but remarkably true. So if we take human history as being roughly 50, 60,000 years of modern, well, not modern, but human culture, we have seen evidence for almost the whole time up until 100 years ago, 150 years ago, that there has virtually always been a presumption, predominantly everywhere, that there's more going on in this universe than us, and that we can contact our loved ones after they've died, that there are beings, non-human beings, that support us and watch over us, whether that's angels or spirit guides, that building our lives around a caring relationship with the spirits that watch over us. Again, that could be ancestors, light beings, again, angels, saints, all kinds of things. That in fact is a huge part of what the spiritual world is. In fact, if you took a little snapshot around the planet 500 years ago, anywhere, you would probably find that, and that when I make these generalizations, I actually mean them academically. You would probably find that the vast majority of people all over this planet would define spirituality as explicitly about your relationship to the spirit world. Whether that's been narrowed down to just God, or whether that's God and a larger group that goes along with, or whether it's literally the spirits that exist in another dimension. 500 years ago, not a lot, I don't imagine a lot of people would have said that a spiritual life is, about healing the wounds of your childhood, about cultivating better relationships. Um, those things have come to us by virtue of evolution. And I think they are now a part of our spirituality, and they should be. And I do believe they have been informed by teachers who are connected with spirit and the spirit world. Um, and yet, yeah, nature beings, thank you. All these manners of beings. Um, and yet, to claim a spiritual life in the modern world is hard. And to claim a living daily relationship with non-human beings or non-material beings is so much harder. And yet, and this is where I'm going to end, and then we'll do a little something experiential and then have some more conversation together, and I'll share a little more. But I was going to say, and yet, the phenomena is culture bound. And I think what has happened, and I guess it's obvious for most of you, is that the extent to which we have become a materialistic society, and by materialistic, I don't necessarily mean greedy, although that sometimes happens. I mean a society that puts priority and preeminence on the material world and science, right? The vehicle of the material world. We have let these other things slip away because they're just harder to prove, and they're harder to consistently identify or communicate with. So a certain amount of faith is lost. But last night, and this is the story I was going to end with, is I was at a indigenous ceremony, a sweat lodge, which is, if you don't know, a ceremonial steam bath. And it was interesting because I was hanging out afterwards with a small group of people, and they were from different indigenous nations in Canada. So Haida and Ojibwe or Anishinaabe and Cree. And what was interesting to me was that I was listening as this one fellow shared the story about how he lives on the West Coast and he's moving back to be with his family, or where his family's from. And he was sharing about how he wanted to learn his language and understand the ceremonies better. And as he shared the story, I realized sort of almost after the fact, that there were these comments throughout the story that referenced the spirit world, like, oh, and then I met that old guy at a gathering, and he said I should follow, the old ways again, and then I wanted to see him again. This really was the story. And he said, but it turns out he died, and then I had a dream about him, and and these little comments throughout the conversation included things like I was visited by someone who died. It included things like I want to be able to have a better relationship with the spirit world. It included things like the assumption that spirit medicine can can heal people and things. And all of it was taken for granted in the conversation. No one made a funny face. No one felt awkward. No one thought it sounded woo-woo or like he was trying to impress us. It was just the world that they lived in. And I just wanted to share that story because I'm interested to kind of stimulate your thinking around how you feel supported to talk about these things, to experience these things, to access these things. And if you do, how can you grow it? And if you don't, what holds you back? So I'm going to pause there and we're going to move into something experiential. But I do want to sort of go back to the big group, the gallery. And before we do our experiential piece, I just want to ask if anyone is just sort of itchy to jump in, expand on what I said, or ask something. Loretta yeah, go ahead, Loretta, unmute and come on down.
Well, it brings up what I have been saying for years, which is our culture or our, where I live. It's almost like they think spirituality is optional. And
Right.
I've been saying for years that we have a spiritual aspect to ourselves. And if we don't attend to that, it's like you wouldn't not attend to your physical well-being, you wouldn't not attend to your mental well-being, but you think that you can not attend to your spiritual well-being and still be healthy in all ways or have a full life, or I'm not sure what the and is, but I don't think it's optional. I think that the reason that humankind has always done it is because we are spiritual beings. And our natural state is to pay attention to that, or in some way. It doesn't matter how,
Yeah.
but in some way.
I love that. I love that. And I'm just trying to grab a piece of paper here. There's two things that you shared that could be worth sort of depicting for people here. So the first, and this is just a hand-drawn image, so if you're able to look. So this is a common image that we see in spiritual traditions, and this is used very often to refer to the fourfold self. And the idea is that we are mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And this is a nice way to organize thinking and teaching. And you can call it mind, body, heart, and soul, or mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, right? Something like this. But one part of what Loretta said, I like to talk about when it comes to healing or change, which is if you only tend to the mental and the physical, I mean, you're really only tending to half of the experience, which is very often what we do. We don't really want to process our feelings or feel them through or understand their origins or whatever. Sometimes we do. But even if we were to be wise enough to incorporate a mental, physical, and emotional approach to something, to miss this piece, like imagine trying to drive a car on a wheel that had a piece this large missing. I mean, you would never do it. And energetically, what's so important to remember about change and changing habits is that any habit in our life, anything in our life, uh, occupies a space energetically in all four of these dimensions. Anything. It could be your relationship to pancakes. It could be your favorite TV show. It could be your most profound romantic relationship. And the point is that if you want to create change in that, the only way we see people consistently making meaningful long-term change is when they address the whole system. And if they leave a piece out, as Loretta's saying, then it's almost like a kind of elastic, right? So you've got it at this level, you want to expand it to the next level, but you've only moved 3 compartments or 2 compartments out. And there is a kind of gravity to the unattended pieces. They will pull back the progress of the areas that you're trying to advance in until all areas are advanced together. A different sort of way of looking at this also might be something like this. And this is to suggest that even though, as Loretta says, some people may try to negotiate the spiritual, if it is ultimately the foundation of life, then everything that we are exists within the spiritual, which is sort of like saying the body doesn't have the soul. The soul has a body, right? There is no soul inside your body. Your body is inside your soul. And this sort of picture that's set, is this backwards, by the way?
Mm.
Oh. There was a time I think Zoom used to reverse things, but I guess they have enough money to fix that. If our relationship to the unseen forces and the biggest questions of life go unaddressed, go unconscious, go unattended to, then we're really trying to maintain wellness and progress and relationships in ignorance of the true forces that are shaping everything within. There's so much more that can be said, but let's go to Lanny, whose hand is up, and thank you, Loretta.
Sorry, I'm eating. I feel like I'm in between two worlds. I feel like there are people that can talk spiritually and there's no in between, whatever. They understand totally, we connect. And there are the people that, for example, I work with who think me I'm one of those weird people. I'm one of those that I talk about the universe. I talk about, stuff, and they think I'm one of those weird people. They don't quite see that that's part of everything. So I feel like I'm bridging the two worlds. Like I feel like I'm standing on two worlds, which I think I've always done that in general. Having been brought up in Mexico and grown up in the States and whatever. So I've always feel like I've been. I don't know if you can see this, but this is my computer. This is one of the guys I used to interpret for. He's a Mexica elder, and he's wonderful. And that just happened to come, my way. So I feel when those things from the universe come, it's a message for me that this is what touches me. And what I do in general is I feel that everything can touch my heart, my soul, but I always say, wow, that made my soul happy, whatever it is. It could be something totally, like 2 degrees of separation with somebody. I feel like, wow, it's really cool that, blah, blah, blah. We're seeing that we're all connected. That's where I feel.
Yes, I appreciate that. And it sounds like you've been fortunate to have some good experiences and reinforcements. But something you said brings up a question that I have for the group, and I'm gonna just stick with this a bit longer. For me, I think the question has always been, how do we find that balance between the number of people we can be in relationship with, the kinds of places we go, the volume of our life that doesn't accept our worldview, and of course, having connection to those that do. I think it's individual, ultimately. I think some of us have to be much more immersed than others. But I only want to say it's tricky because I do think we have to do what Lanny said, and we have to accept. I'm going to work with some people who don't believe in these things, and I'll just be the kind of wacko that talks about this stuff. But then I need my places, maybe like our group right here, where I can safely talk about spirit and God and I don't, or whatever consciousness. I don't even need to qualify it. But I wonder how hard it's been for any of you, for some of you. I would love to hear from people. We also have people that want to make comments here to maintain that balance. Because I've experienced it much at a very deep level in the sense that, you know, if you know someone, for example, who is gay, but spent a huge amount of their life pretending not to be, or feeling like they couldn't let people know. Yeah, there's a certain amount of time that might have been okay with them in certain settings where they didn't have any problems withholding that information or hiding that information. But all in all, that is not a healthy way to live. And there's very few people in that position who would say they would choose that, or that they've enjoyed it, or that that balance was easy. And the same is true of religion, right? There's people who are, I mean, even just being Jewish. I remember having a neighbor that was incredibly anti-Semitic and hiding it from him. I was very young at the time. I was like 19, so it was sort of a stupid thing to do. But that didn't feel good at all. It didn't feel good at all. Um, and there's all kinds of examples. So I'm curious to hear a little bit after we hear from Chantel and Loretta. What is that balance like for you, or how do you find your balance? How do you make peace with hiding or just not being able to be completely embodied in your spiritual life? Chantel, do you want to go next? Unmute yourself, and then Loretta, and then we'll see if someone wants to jump in.
I think Loretta was before me. No,
Well,
it's okay. Okay.
she's gracious.
I don't know if it's in the focus because I'm always wanting to have balance. And obviously this morning I was meditating on how to connect with your loved one and through the spiritual eye. And then to do the exercise, the lesson says that think of someone that you love very much, and then you can connect with that person. At that point, I said, I never loved anyone very much, even my kids. So I said, well, what's going on? I cannot find someone that really loved deeply here on earth. And then I said, is this my problem? Why I don't find a balance? And then I meditated a little bit more because the lesson is the guru,
Mhm.
And all of a sudden I had an image where, as you know, Jonathan Yogananda, I'm very close to him, but like I said, I've been on the path for 40 years. But there was a book when I went to California, there was a book when he passed away, and there was a picture and he's dead. But when I saw that picture, because I was just in the beginning of my spiritual journey, because I will call it a relationship with the mystical,
Mhm.
I started to cry like a baby because I've never loved anyone. And then that came. I said, why am I crying so much? And I don't know that man, he's a stranger. And I was sobbing and sobbing. I said, why do I cry for that person? So at that point, I said, then I asked Yogananda, I said, okay, you were a friend of the past, but why can I not recognize that within myself, knowing that? And it seems that it's affecting my whole life. I cannot love anybody having any relationship with others here on earth because I'm looking for that love, because love is my main goal. I'm looking for that friend that I connected so good. It was so much love. And I said, what am I going to do? So how am I going to find the balance? And lately, the last 3-4 days, I've been going through physical pain, really bad pain, that I had to take a Tylenol. And me, I'm not a person who will take pills, Tylenol, but I had to take 2 in a row. I was suffering so much. And I said, what is my body is trying to tell me? I need to embody myself. I need to feel that love, because I'm not able to love anybody else until I get to, I guess it's Yogananda. And obviously some people, like my ex-husband, said, the minute you let go of Yogananda, Chantal, you'll be okay. You're too in oneness with him. I said, okay, how do I do that? Because obviously love is within me, but why do I need him to embody it? So that's where I stayed this morning with my meditation when they said, connect with your loved one. I said, I'm trying to connect with you, but something is not, maybe I'm scared. I don't know if you had any experience like that, Jonathan, or something. Like I said, to be spiritual, to be on the spiritual path is to be connecting with the mystical, but connecting with the earth too. But now at least I know it's through love that I will, but love is, I'm obsessed with that. So I don't know if it's an obsession, it's me, it's our nature, but I cry every time, I think of that. So
Wow, I have to say thank you. That is a very powerful and I don't know, I would also say challenging or provocative kind of thing to share. Very honest. And I want to restate it in the way that I heard it, not only to be sure that I heard it, but I don't respectfully, I don't even know if it's the kind of thing that everyone can follow. Maybe yes, maybe I'm restating only for myself. But I think you actually stated something that is a very profound dimension to this dynamic, which is not only do we struggle with our disconnect from spirit and spirits, and I would include Yogananda in the spirits category, but sometimes the opposite is also true, which is that we are so connected to them that the love we feel there, or the love that resides in us as a memory of that extraordinary, I don't like to use the word perfect, but this extraordinary perfect love makes it hard to just be with humans, because humans are so much harder to love, frankly, in lots of ways. Or we love them for a bit and then they do stupid things, or they don't cooperate, or they act one way when we're getting to know them, and then we really get to know them that they're not fun at all. And the way and the only thing I can share is the way I live with that, which is that I try personally to honor the perfect love of the divine being or the cosmos or whatever it would be by cultivating it through the imperfect love and the small opportunities on earth. And it is an intentional work. It's hard work, actually, if you have the memory of divine love, to accept that human love relationships exist inside that, but will not be that. And the spiritual opportunity for the evolution of the soul, I think, is to offer that divine, that perfect love to imperfect relationships. That seems to be the work that drives that pure love deep into our system, deep into our soul. Because if we resist that work, and I'm speaking for all of us, then we actually resist the divine love. We set up a scenario where we will only accept it if it's everything all at once. But that, as you said, Chantel, but that's not really the human journey. You know, the human journey is to find a way to see what Rumi would call the beloved in all things and all people, the stray dog, the grumpy neighbor, the racist school teacher. How we love them behaviorally varies. It's not going to look the same. But can we draw from that divine love and then offer it to all those beings who we may feel incapable of sharing that love with? I'm just going to stop there because it's a huge topic and it's a good one. I really love it. But time marches on. So thank
I
you.
just want to let you know something that I
Yeah.
just purchased a book called Perfect Love in an Imperfect Relationship or something like that.
Oh, nice. I'm going to look up that book. Thank you. Loretta, you wanted to come back into the conversation.
I did. There was another point I wanted to make, which was even if you grow up in our modern religions, you know,
Yeah.
in a religious household, as I did, it's like it's still the idea that spirit is there and we are here, and there's a separation, and they put a priest in there to make
Right.
a conduit for us, which and they discount the personal experience of spirit. But go ahead.
No, I actually think that's it's funny because it flickered through my head earlier. I think it's a very important point that you just said, which is there are settings in the contemporary world where spirit and spirits are acknowledged. But I'm totally with you. I think one of the things that has fostered the separation, even in those communities, is the fact that connection with spirit and spirits has been stratified.
Mhm.
So, it's sort of like you can go, I'm generalizing unfairly, but like you can go to a church and well, as long as the guy at the front has a connection to God, the rest of us can just nod and agree and accept the blessing and go home better. But
Right.
that's kind of bullshit, right?
And the belief that we can't get there without him or her
Right. Him specifically.
or him
Um,
specifically.
yeah, meaning a male,
Yeah.
which is like disgusting. Well, yeah, and I think that was like one of the motivations behind the book, which is to say, wait a second, we're all having spiritual experiences.
Yeah.
We're all spiritual by nature.
Can I address for just a moment what you talked about earlier as being disconnected? I was thinking this morning, Easter is Sunday, and I grew up in a religious household. We're having big Easter, dinner. And I was thinking this morning that I'm going to be there, and part of me doesn't want to be there because they don't really accept who I am.
Yeah, yeah,
It's hard.
yeah.
And
And
I know
that,
that they love
that-
me, and they would all say, no, 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 we love you. But they love me under their conditions, not under mine.
yeah. This is a huge topic. I'm going to say something about it because I just can't let something go. And then I'm going to switch to that little experiential thing that I said we were going to do because I want to make sure we get that in. Although actually I do want to make since we're just going to do all the talking before the experience, I'm going to make my comment. I will see if anyone else wants to say something. And I seem to remember, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. Sherry Lynn, you have been with us before, right?
One time, yes.
Yeah. And I remember
Yes.
picking on you.
Yes.
And I remember you said something just fabulously insightful. So I'm just going to pick on you again and say, hey, don't be shy if you want to jump in. But the floor is open. If anyone wants to add something, we have a few more minutes for some other comments. But I want to say something to what Loretta brought up. So the phenomena of being in relationships or communities where you feel you're in a love relationship that doesn't go both ways, to me presents two different challenges. And all of it is about reconsidering what we expect from relationships. The first is to consider that in a true love relationship, the question is not what do I get from them, but what can I give? And then we accept as souls that whether you want to call it designed or planned, however you think of it, the work is what's in front of us. And so there is no reality where we have a family that gets us. There is no reality where we have a partner that is perfectly matched. There is no, at least on this earth. I'm not saying not for anybody ever, but generally. And so the deeper spiritual work becomes, wow, what does this bring up for me? And what opportunity for evolution does this create for me? And I think the evolution is two. One, can I bring that perfect love, something more divine, like what Chantel talked about, and offer it, which ironically I think is very much the Easter story. To me, that's one of the themes that I love about the Easter story, which is this image of Jesus, whether it's literally true or mythically true, that just continues to love despite persecution, despite misunderstanding. I mean, despite being ostracized by his people and the government and all these things, and just saying, well, my truth is my truth, and I know what I love, and I'm one with spirit, and I love you anyway. I mean, sorry it's going to end like this, but the fact that you don't like me doesn't change my ability to love you. The second opportunity is then to say, well, then where the heck do we derive the confidence and the wholeness and the self-assuredness to say that? Because to love people that are at odds with you, to love people that don't like you, is pretty friggin' hard. But that brings us full circle back to the very beginning of our conversation, which is, well, that is why I think we need to cultivate deep relationships with the non-human world, because as Chantel illustrated, we can have a love relationship, a very real love relationship with the divine, with the spirit world, with God, with nature, with life. And that relationship has nothing between us and it except us. And if we can accept it and return to it, then it seems to me we have the capacity to go to those places where we are not understood or appreciated and share our love. I think is your hand still up, or she's trying to, John Wellwood, perfect loved imperfect relationships. Thank you. Healing the wound of the heart. That looks really good. Thank you for sharing that with us. John Wellwood, for people interested. One more time, the cover. Perfect love, imperfect relationships. Yeah, that looks cool. I'm going to write that down too. All right. Anyone else before we move to our closing exercise?
Can I just add something, Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm so glad you're going to.
Well, first, I want to tell you I'm loving your book. So thank you so much. Yeah, yeah. It really is bringing me to a deeper place and remembering, and this just strikes so much about what the conversation is about, and what you just said too, Jonathan, is, I don't know how you framed it, but I think that is the journey for us. We're just beginning to recognize what love really is, and is reframing it, and it's understanding love from the lens of the divine. And so it is going to be imperfect for all of us. It has to be that way in order for us to really recognize that we are love. We are the extension of the divine bringing that love, and the divine fills us with that love as we step into our spiritual nature and we get to know the divine.
Yeah. It's so hard, isn't it?
Very. And I'm going through it really. There's something in my life happening right now, and it's, I've been working on emotional processing and everything. And it's bringing in that love, though, every time I feel that wave coming and hitting me, and just, okay, and allowing myself to be, to feel the divine energy, because I believe in what you say about energy too. I think that is the connection for us to really begin to understand that we imbue that energy. We are part of that energy. And so then when I'm feeling that resistance, I become that loving energy. And then it totally takes me to a totally different place. And it's the only way I can get through it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, my mind will take me into a place I don't want to go.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, I get it. I get it.
Whew.
It's
Well,
difficult.
beautifully said, and good luck and blessings with facing that. It's hard. So it brings me to our closing exercise or activity or whatever you want to call it. And it comes out of the way I want to connect it to with what Sherry said is that I think there's another delusion. I'm just making notes for myself. It brings us to another delusion of the modern world, which is that we think we're supposed to be able to do all this stuff on our own. And to do the hard work that Sherry's talking about, Loretta's talking about, and Chantel's talking about, that I'm talking about, I mean, you got to find a place to be filled. You got to find a place to be supported. I mean, I shared my example of being in the sweat lodge yesterday. And it was funny because my morning, I had just kind of a horrific morning for all kinds of reasons, physical, emotional, weather, was not an easy morning. And then the day just ended like so beautifully. And it was just because I went somewhere where I felt seen and fed and I could just relax and be myself. And then I came back to some similar things, but they were completely different, right? Because I was different. So I just want to walk through how I understand a simple process of connecting with the spirit world. And when I say the spirit world, I mean whatever's in there for you. So that could be just God. That could be God and the angels. That could be none of that. It could be nature spirits, ancestors, Krishna. I'm just saying, if there's a being or beings that you want to connect with, loved ones that have passed, whatever, I my experience is that there's a kind of formula or a format. So I want to just tell you what that is, and then we'll just have a simple prayer using that to close. So the first thing is that we have to set a space, create a space for it. Now, that can be done through music, right? So you can create spaces like a vibrational thing. So you can do that through sound. You can do that through physical space by creating like a cosmologically significant setting. You can use incense. That's what I'm burning here. But there needs to be some way to transform at least the immediate space that you're in. So again, whether that's a large center you return to, an altar, or just yourself in the moment. And then the next step is to prepare yourself. And that's why in many traditions we cleanse, right, through holy water or smudging or some ritual movement or behavior. From there, once the space and the self have been prepared, we invite whatever it is that we want to be in relationship with. And we do that very directly by name. And then as you would any guest that comes to your home or to your most sacred space, you appreciate them, you welcome them, you thank them. And the main activity that happens in that sort of event or that ritual is expressing and receiving. Expressing means if you want to ask for something, if you want to tell them something, if you want to I don't know, acknowledge them in some traditional or ritualized way. This could be words, this could be a prayer, this could be a song, but there is typically something that goes out, an expression. Oh, sorry. I made I skipped one thing. When I said appreciate them, like welcome, I just skipped something that was obvious to me, but maybe not to you. Imagine having someone to your home who is very special to you. One of the first things you would do would be to offer them something to eat or drink, usually. And you would do that with the beings as well. So some kind of offering, whether it's flowers on an altar, tobacco out the window, rice, fruit, whatever it is that makes sense to you. But there's prepare the space, prepare the self, invite the guest, appreciate and offer to the guest. Then it's the express. Why'd you call them? And then receive a time of meditation, time of listening to see if there is something that comes back. And then, of course, we complete with gratitude and finally a closing, which is to release them, send them on their way. And metaphysical traditions, spiritual traditions that interact with spiritual beings put a huge emphasis on the importance of closing and letting them go. And the idea really is that it's like if you had a really special person in your house, whatever, a celebrity or the Dalai Lama or whatever that would be, imagine that you call them to come, they come, you give them food and drink, and then like you just kind of like wander off after your conversation and you just go to the bathroom and go to bed. And they're just sitting there in your living room. Like that would be absurd. They'd never come back. So in the same way, we let them go. With that, I would love to close with a simple prayer, but one that is not so much for us, but it's more for those that guide us. And if you have to go before our time's up, I'm grateful that you were here, and we'll see you next week, maybe. And invite people, right? Like, don't forget if you like this, I guess tell people about it. It's fun when we have new people. And with that, I'm just going to say, let's close our eyes. And let's prepare our space by breathing in all the energy of life that is abundantly around us, and then breathing out from our hearts a kind of loving energy. So, breathing in the energy of life, and imagine a kind of loving, graceful, beautiful energy. As you breathe it out, imagine that it surrounds you. Imagine that you extend it to everyone hearing this, everyone on this call. Breathing in the life force that feeds the trees and the creatures that carries all the energy between us, and then breathing out that divine love that comes through us but is not even ours. It is inextinguishable. Perhaps you can even envision a kind of energy holding us all together. In this energy, we ourselves are centered, relaxed, and we open our hearts and minds together in peace. And each in our own way, but together as one, we acknowledge, we call the presence of Spirit to the one that is all, dear God, and to all those that watch over us for our highest good, known and unknown, angels, ancestors, grandmothers, grandfathers, guardians, light beings, ascendant masters, to all and anyone you can conjure who guides us or who you hope will guide us with love. We welcome you. To our loved ones that have passed, we welcome you. We're so grateful that you're in this loving space with us together. And today we ask nothing of you except to share this moment, to know that we are grateful. We ask forgiveness that we do not reach out enough, that we do not invite you enough, that we don't take the time to feel you and appreciate you enough. We hope that you'll understand the way life can be for us, that we become busy, distracted. And we are grateful for all the ways you guide us and support us. And maybe some of us here in this circle right now are even talking to you, asking you for some help. But most importantly, we're here to say thank you. And we love you. And we are sometimes overwhelmed or unable to fully grasp what you are and where you are, but we trust. We trust. And if there's things that you would like us to know or do or have, then please gently, kindly share that with us in a way we can receive. It could be a thought or a feeling right now, or just something in the day to come, a synchronicity or a chance event. And we're grateful for all those ways that you're trying to communicate with us. And we wish for your highest good and your love and blessing, whatever that means. And today our wish, our prayer is no more than that. So we thank you again to all those that have gathered, to all those that guide, our love, our blessing, and we release you. We release you to wherever you may be, wherever you need to go. But know that we cherish when you are here. We cherish when you are close. And when it's time to close and move on, we, with all our hearts, we gratefully let you go. And so for this beautiful moment we've shared together, and all the blessings of our lives that have brought us to this little moment, we say thank you and amen. Oh, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being in that with me. And I could feel so many of your hearts and prayers. So thank you. Time's up. I guess we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you,
Awesome.
everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's Kira in Denver.
Oh, hey.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm usually out hiking on Thursdays, but I got in early today, so I caught you. I'm on the phone.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you. It's amazing to hear your voice.
Yes, yours too. I appreciate the time with you today.
Is Rumi still around?
He passed a year ago at the
Oh.
age of 17.
Oh my gosh. Well, then he was
I
here
know.
today. He was here today.
Yes, yes. He's with me often.
Oh, all right. Well, lots of love and thank you for saying hi.
Yes, much love, Jonathan. Hopefully, I'll connect with you again.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. To everyone else, Barbara, it's so good to see you. Last face on the camera. Okay. I'll see you soon. And bye, everyone else who's out there. Oh, there, Kamari. Thank you for being here. Blessings. Bye-bye.